All right, I'm back again, and it's getting late in the evening, a little after 8. I've been watering the garden. That's why I look worse than usual. And yeah, my shoulder's not hurt. I'm just covering a logo on my shirt that would give away my identity, my location, and I don't want to do that if I can help it. I've got several videos in the can, if you will, that on the hantavirus, or however you pronounce it, as well as something on to do with the garden. I've been sitting on some of those for a week. I may go ahead and get those uploaded. But today, the social media has been all abuzz with the whole Thomas Massie, Cynthia West story. Insects of some variety. They're going crazy. Spring in the South. Summer ain't much better, but the whole Thomas Massie, Cynthia West story is blowing up again from 2024. The guy that was behind it, that was doing the podcast, he's a Never Massie type that's been in prison. I forget what for, and I forget his name, but he actually ran against Massie once upon a time. So it's looking like a concerted effort. The fact that all of the big social media influencers, pro-Trump, Trump-only social media influencers are all over this. The fact that it's a week away from his primary is not lost on me. So full disclosure, I'm not a big fan of any politician. I think they're all lying, thieving scumbags, as my grandmother used to say. You don't get to that level, or my grandmother used to say, if you ever stay in politics at a certain level long enough, you're going to come out crooked. I like to put it, you don't get to that level without at least knowing where some bodies are. You don't remain in that level without having put some there. But the big allegations are that Thomas Massie had a little bit of a fling going on with a married woman. He asked her to do something in the bedroom, if you will. She disagreed. They broke up. He offered it like $5,000 and signed an NDA. Supposedly the money came from cash from cattle sale that was not reported to the IRS, supposedly. Now, just off of what has been released so far that I have seen, which is that there, it's not a real, not really doesn't, in my mind, doesn't amount to anything. The only thing would be the whole paying the selling cattle and paying her off with money that was not reported to the IRS. And anyone who's spent any time around anyone to do with agriculture, or anyone blue collar even, there's a chance at some point in time they've done some stuff behind the under the table, if you will, for cash. I had a cousin. He's been dead for more than 20 years, so at this point it's okay to tell this story. He would sell sweet corn from the back of his truck, and then take the money, I think wrap it in foil, stick it in a Ziploc bag, and then wrap it in a grocery bag and hide it in the freezer. And no, I'm not demonically possessed. It's dark, and I've got glare from the camera from my eyes. It's tripping me up a bit. But so, I mean, this whole side of things, I'm not that worried, especially not only is it not out of character for someone who's a farmer, but for someone like Thomas Massie, who's been very much for abolishing the IRS. It sounds about par for the course for what he'd do. Maybe not the whole messing around with the married woman part, but I don't know what was going on. It could have been that they were already split. She and her husband were already split up. I don't know. I legitimately don't know those details. I can't say anything about that. It's hardly a criminal offense that something like that would happen, or he would even have a kink. My guess is most people have a kink. I have a kink. I'm sure everyone watching this video has some form of kink. And the fact that someone at that level of exposure would want an NDA is not unheard of. I mean, unless the only thing that would be out of character, real red flag would be if his kink was something along the lines of Vince McMahon bad, then yeah, there could be an issue. But aside from that, no, not really. And it don't sound like he was trying to use campaign funds or congressional funds or anything like that. It was his own money. So I don't have an issue with that. But what really bothers me is about all this, it's the Trumpers. The MAGA-tards. I have no use for people like this. When Donald Trump had his issues with Jean Carroll and Stormy Daniels, I was the very first person to say, let's see what happens if it comes up that he did something criminal. Fine, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Whatever happens in the courts. And come to find out, yeah, he was held civilly liable for defamation and abuse against Jean Carroll, and I can't say those words on Twitter, or not Twitter, but YouTube. And the whole Stormy Daniels thing wound up with him having 34 felony convictions. And people to this day are still trying to attack Jean Carroll and Stormy Daniels. And yeah, they may be slimy people. They may have questionable backgrounds and everything else, but that doesn't affect the outcome of the trial. They can be less than credible people themselves. Yeah, I saw that mosquito. And still be, have people do something to them that is wrong. And according to the courts, that's what happened. But people are still ready, willing, and able to argue like no tomorrow that Trump is completely innocent, even though he's been tried by a court of law and found guilty. And that's the way. But meanwhile, with Thomas Massie, they're ready to convict him right here on the spot. With America, we're supposed to be a country of law, a rule of law, and part of that is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Donald Trump was proven guilty. Thomas Massie has not gotten that. And, it's funny. They look to discredit Jean Carroll and Stormy Daniels. But meanwhile, this Cynthia West, when she was going through her divorce, she tried to pull some crap, made some allegations against her now ex-husband that were thrown out as being completely and total bullcrap. So she has a history of making up crap and even going before a judge on it. And they're still willing to take her word. Meanwhile, there's two ladies, and I guess ladies in the evening, it works, that at least in one, that's literally what her profession was. But they went, and their words were heard and before a court, and a jury said, yeah, we believe them over him. And appeals have heard and said the same thing. So it's hard for me to say that Cynthia West is any less credible than they are. If anything, or it's hard for me to say that Cynthia West is any more credible than there. If anything, she would be less because of the judicial history of them, of the three individuals involved. So for now, I'm going to, as I did with Trump, call the timing of this whole thing suspect. It seems like they've gotten their marching orders, and that's what they're doing, just the same as the Democrats did leading up to 2024 election. You know, Republicans, they've taken that same Democrat playbook, and they're running with it. And yeah, you know what? If Thomas Massie, if it comes out he did something illegal, and the appropriate body decides they want to press charges, I'll be fine with it. Same as I said with Trump. If they want to do it, fine. But until that point in time that it goes before a court of law and it gets ruled on, and they say Thomas Massie did something illegal, I'm going to abide by innocent until proven guilty. And yeah, maybe he did have an affair. Maybe he was even cheating on his own late wife. I don't know. Hardly illegal. It is morally questionable, but when you get in that ilk, and I'm talking about big time politicians where money's changing hands and everything else, or any position where really a lot of money changes hands, fidelity is less of a norm. It's like my grandmother, and I've said this before, my grandmother said about Richard Nixon. He didn't say or do anything that hadn't been done before, since he just got caught and wasn't good enough liar to get out of it. And I'm going to say that put Thomas Massie potentially in that same boat. I don't have to like the choices he made, but you know what? I'm not the one that ultimately has to live with it. And I say the same thing with Trump. I mean, people are wanting to attack Thomas Massie about infidelity. Good Lord Almighty, and you support Trump? He's cheated on every wife he's ever had, sometimes multiple times. So if you're going to pick on one, you got to pick on both. You got to have the same energy. And if you're not going to do it to both, don't do it at all. You hypocrite. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the matter. I'm going to go get away from these, whatever they are. At this point, I can't even see them. And I'm going to clean up the kitchen. Let me know what you think. Later.